using VirtualBox. So configuring and running this lab will definitely help your understanding of how Active Directory works, as well as Windows networking in general. I'd recommend maybe running through it a few times just to kind of get used to it. And
Okay, so test 1, 2, 3, there's me. This is the third time that I went through trying to explain this, and it was operator error. Anyways, I unplugged 2 of my 3 monitors. I got 1 camera going. Let's do this. Let's go through it. We're going to get into this Windows privilege escalation. I'll lead into that later. So this particular lab, I saw several students doing it on YouTube, and I wanted to take advantage of it. It's 2 years old. The thing that I enjoyed most about doing the lab would be the PowerShell script that was ran, and that is provided in the description. So the description we see, we're going to download VirtualBox. I'm not a VirtualBox user, but for me to do this lab, since I don't have the VMware workstation, I had to use it. Then you have the ISO files for server 2019, Windows 10 ISO file. I was not able to get the 10 ISO file. I was able to get 11, but it's a beast, and I have to run that on my computer because I only have 16 gigs of RAM and an i7 processor, which is plenty for you can do a lot of stuff with it, but running OBS Studio, running a domain controller, and 3 or 4 client PCs. But anyways, I did install it. It's pretty nice. So let me click through here and just see what was important, and then I'll show proof of concept. So what do we see here? This is the kind of like a graphical drawing schematic of what's going on, what we are doing. So here, very important, this is going to be the domain controller, and I'm going to open that up. And my domain controller, it's running server 2019. You're going to have one NIC that goes out to the World Wide Web, the cloud, the internet. You're going to have an internal NIC that is going to communicate with the other clients that are on this particular domain. Okay, so this domain could be at Valencia, it can be at Lake Sumter Community College, it can be at a workplace. It's a domain, and it's Windows 7, it's Windows Server 2019, and with that, it's Active Directory. But there's some features, some roles that we are going to add to get this network topology to work. So we see here we have the IP address that we're going to assign to the internal NIC, which will allow communications to our client PCs. My client PCs, I'm going to open it up with Windows 7. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to connect to this network with a Windows 7 PC, and I'm going to connect to it with a Windows 8 PC. And if I have time, we'll do the 11, but it's not going to be needed for proof of concept. This is a proof of concept video. This is for my academic advisor. It also could be for anybody else who's interested in what I do on my free time, on my weekend. So, like I said, this is the third take. The last one I ran long, it went an hour. So without further ado, let's push on through. So, what do we see? We see that our domain controller is going to act as a RAS/NAT. So basically what it's going to do is route IP addresses like a router, okay, and use what's called NAT, which stands for Network Address Translation. So when somebody says it's NATed, that means that the router is NATed. It's able to take a public IP address and convert it to a private IP address and issue you, that's NAT. It's going to change numbers basically. And it's going to allow you to communicate to the internet. It's going to allow somebody on a local area network to communicate on the internet using a private IP address as opposed to the public IP address. So I had to download VirtualBox because I don't have VMware Workstation. That's probably why we see VMware Network. It's actually a VirtualBox network, but virtualization is virtualization. So we see DHCP, which is Dynamic Host Control Protocol. DHCP is what is used on your router. DHCP is what is used when you take your phone and you go, hey, you got internet, what's the password, and you log into somebody's router. The router uses DHCP to issue you an IP address. If you're on a Windows PC and for some reason you do not get that IP address, the Windows PC is going to use something called APIPA, which stands for Automatic Private IP Addressing, and it begins with a 169. So if you ever do an IP config and you see 169, you know that something is not cooperating. So let's see, what else do we see? We see the DHCP scope. So we're going to configure the server to provide IP addresses within the 100 to 200 range. Excuse me, I'm just going to make sure I'm recording because this is like the third time I've done this. Yes, everything looks good. I'm not going to do this again. Okay, so let's keep on going. So let me open this up. All right, the range is 100 through 200. That means that 100 PCs can access this domain is what it means. And they will be given an IP address that ends in a number between 100 and 200. It's just that simple. Our net mask is 255.255.255.0. Okay, so it's a CIDR 24 network, CEDR 24, which means that it could accommodate, it could have up to 255 IP addresses, but 2 are unusable. The first and the last are unusable. The last would be a broadcast address, and the first is not usable because that would be issued to a router, or in this case, a domain controller. So let's see what else is there to explain. It's saying that DHCP will be getting address from your home router. So yes, the NIC on my computer will use NAT, network address translation. So my network interface card will use NAT, network address translation, to provide the internet, the cloud. So not an internal network, but an external network, the cloud. So we can go to Google. So we have an internal IP address and an outside IP address. Client 1, that just means, a PC that is accessing, that is trying to get on this domain controller. So not everybody can get on it. You have to be a user that's been configured to get on it. Excuse me. And you need to, you need to be configured on there. And there is something very important. They're going to, oh wow, it is. It's a 1,000 user PowerShell script that was ran. So as we progress in technology, scripts become more involved and more automation. So yeah, probably at one point in time, somebody had to log 1,000 users in, but now we can just do it in a script. Don't know how old that technology or how new that technology is, but hey, it's out there. We did it. The PowerShell script link is, let's see, let me pull this down. It's in his github.com. It's in his GitHub profile. It's here's the link. So if you're interested in this particular script, if you want to modify it, edit it, learn from it, he explains it in this lab, and he explains it in detail. So I definitely am going to mess around with the script and see if I can make some changes using AI to guide me and prompt AI, and hey, not only do I want to configure 1,000 users in this Active Directory domain controller, but let's do some other things. So basically the way it's set up, it's going to put the first last name in, it's going to use a prefix of their first and last name, and it's going to issue a standard password of password1, so everybody can use password1, and then the domain admin could configure it to where they log in that they're prompted to change the password. So without further ado, let's pull up what I did. I'm just going to close out of this and walk through the lab really quick. So let me make sure everything looks good here. Yes, we are still where we need to be, and we're recording. I'm at 11 minutes. Okay, let's go. So let's see here. Let's do this. Let's open this up, and I want to run through this real quick. So here's the script. This was recorded in Windows Server, and it is the script provided by Josh, and we're just going to go through it real quick. So what we see right here, we put in a command using PowerShell called set execution policy unrestricted. That's just to allow the script to run. So that was entered. We see that I put cd change directory, and we went into the directory where the script was. There's the PowerShell script. It's called create users. Alright, and there's the script. We see everybody's going to get password 1. There's your loop and for each. Let's see here, and there's the script running. So I ran the script. So all of these, when I open up Windows Server, all of these users are going to be configured. So I didn't have to manually do this, and which is great because the next lab is privilege escalation by TCM. Apparently there's a Windows 7 kernel exploit out there, and that's probably why Windows does not support Windows 7 anymore. But he's got a lab, and he kind of walks through some stuff. Very educational. He's a pen tester. That's his job. He's got a LinkedIn profile. He's not malicious. He's just letting people be aware of what's going on out there. So the script's going to run. It's going to install 1,000 users, so we don't need to see the whole thing. Look at it go. So that read, he said that there was 2 names that were repeated. Not a big deal. Alright, so that's the PowerShell script being ran. Now let's go into the lab. There's my name prefix. A would be administrator, and Sant, S-A-N-T, for first 4 of my last name, and J would be the first initial of my first name. Let's close this out. Goodbye. Okay. Now, we downloaded VirtualBox, Windows 11 ISO, and the server evaluation. Okay, and what do we got here? Let me open this up. That's the topology. Again, we already went through the topology, so I'm going to close that out. And let's go ahead and fire up VirtualBox. Let's run the domain controller, and all we're going to do is verify that these users can log in. I'm not going to go through all the steps that were needed. This is a proof of concept for my academic advisor or whoever may need to see that I understand what the heck's going on before either making a decision. So let's fire up Windows Server. First, let's go through the settings. Very important, the network, the way that the network is set up. We have adapter 1 is NAT, network address translation. That's the one that's going to go to the cloud. Adapter 2, that's the internal network. Okay, so that's the one. It does not go to the cloud. It's within the domain. So it would be within the college campus or wherever wherever the domain is located. My domain name is going to be orchid.com. I'm going to follow a theme, and it's for the next lab. So we got an internal network, and we have a network to reach the cloud, and it's through network address translation. Okay, that's Windows Server. And then Windows 11, all of the other clients, these three are client PCs, will go to the setting. So we'll go to the network. We see adapter 1 is the internal network. The internal network. It's not NATed. It's not going to go to google.com. All right. Adapter 2, 3, and 4 are not configured. All right. Windows 7, same thing. We'll go to settings. Okay. Network. Okay. Internal network. 2, 3, 4, they're off. Windows 8 Pro. Settings. Okay. Network. Internal network. Same thing. 2, 3, 4, not working. That means that these computers, in order for them to communicate with google.com or anything in the cloud, it needs to go through this domain controller, which is Windows Server 2019. So let's go ahead and start it. Not a big fan of VirtualBox, but to get this lab done quicker, it was the way to go. Unless I want to buy VMware Workstation. You could find some workarounds to do it with VMware Player, but just want to get it done and get it out there. I'm most likely going to speak to an advisor tomorrow. Trying to not have to do CompTIA A+ hardware and CompTIA A+ software again. If I can not have to do those two, it's going to help me a lot. It's going to help me to get an AS degree in less than 2 years. Because I just finished my last mathematics course this summer, and it's the last math for an AA degree. What happened was I was in an electronics engineering program before I started working for the city, and I was taking classes here and there, and time went on, and I should have got should have went through the curriculum a lot quicker, but I didn't. So what happened was the degree is no longer offered, and I now was a student taking courses for personal interest. So what I did was I looked around my workplace environment. I saw, hey, I work for local government. Why not study political science? Why not study United States history or U.S. history? I work with spreadsheets all day. Why not take Excel for business math? So I took some good classes, and then I took my Gordon Rule course. It was to get an AA, get that piece of paper to complement my other certs, and then keep on going. So press Control-Alt-Delete. So I'm going to input Control-Alt-Delete, insert Control-Alt-Delete. Okay, there's me, Jason A. Santiago. Let's log in using to show that we are logging into a domain. I named mine Orchid. We're going to follow an Orchid theme. My PCs are Orchid theme as well, because we're going to move on to another lab that is going to be more shell-based, command prompt-based, and we're going to do some things. So nothing malicious. And this is my home lab. This is all my stuff, all my software. A lot of the software was provided by DreamSparks at a time. You get a lot of stuff as a student. And then you get a lot of stuff online too. So let's log in here. Come on now. Don't be shy. So we are logging into Windows Server, and for our client PCs to be able to log into the domain, it needs to be on for one. Let's let it run. Other failure, unresponsive. So that's another thing. Doing this lab, it's very power hungry. Let's see, we can do Control-Alt-Delete. This is my computer. You see, very high. It's VirtualBox. It's very power hungry, and it seems like the more and more software grows and develops, the more power they need. So I'm all for scaling it back a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, how much? Like, do I really need to log into Linode to use their stuff to do a lab? Kind of, sort of. I mean, I saw Hack the Box. You know, there's a lot of configurations with servers that would save time for me that I wouldn't have to do. But there might be a workaround. Like, maybe there's a server, a Windows server that's configured with group policy and high, a lot of restrictions that would make trying to do a privilege escalation a lot harder. But right now, with this lab, let's continue on. We see we have Active Directory and Domain Services is running, DHCP, DNS, the web server is running, and this is the RAS. So we saw in that network topology, RAS, and NAT. This is what this is all about. DHCP, that's Dynamic Host Control Protocol. That's a protocol that is used to issue IP addresses to the clients. It's the same protocol that your router uses to issue IP addresses. The DNS, that's the name of our domain. We have that configured. That was in the lab. So we'll go to Tools, and we're going to open up. First, let's look at DHCP, so we can look at the scope, the IP scope, because it needs to know, the server needs to know, hey, you got me configured. When people log into this domain, there needs to be some type of variables, and the variable is an IP address range of 172.16.0.100 through 200, and that's it. No, the IP addresses that are issued are within that scope. So that's something that we configured doing the lab. So I'll close out of that really quick. And the next thing that we configured was RAS. So let's go into Tools. We also did DNS. So let's check DNS. Alright, so we configured it, but we didn't really do anything here. Let's just close that out. Let's go to Tools, and let's take a look at the routing. So RAS, where you at, baby? Routing, no, that's not it. Routing and remote access. It's not the remote access you're thinking. It's how the IP it's how the information is going to get routed into the domain controller and then also back out into the cloud. Okay, let's open this up. close it. Yep, Orchid slash PC has been configured. There's our network interface. Here we see the internet. That's the one that goes to the cloud. This is the internal. And there's your loopback. Let's see if I can explain that by opening up the, let's see if we can see adapter properties. If this thing starts to slow down, just have to close out on it. Come on, man. Don't do this to me. There we go. Let's see, let's go into properties. IPv6 is not on properties, so we see that we have 172.16.01. That's the default gateway, but notice we're using it as the IP address of the server, and we're leaving the default gateway blank. Subnet mask is the 255.255.255.0. That is a CEDAR network. That is a CEDAR class, meaning that you can have 255 IP addresses, but the first and the last is unusable. The first is going to be used for your router, or in this instance, it's going to be used for our server. And for our DNS server, we're just using the loopback. So that would be 127.0.0.1. Okay. I have IPv6 shut off, so we'll close out of that. That's the internal network. So this is the one that's going to go out to the cloud. So once again, I have 6 shut off. I don't. So it's set to obtain IP addresses automatically. It's going to get that through DHCP, and it's going to get that through VirtualBox. Oh. VirtualBox is going to provide this server with an IP address using NAT, network address translation, to reach the cloud. Alright, so let's close out of that and move along. Let's see what else we need to cover. Let's take a look at Active Directory. We'll go to Tools, Active Directory. Let's see if I can go here. So, I'm not a pro at Active Directory. I tinkered with it back in 2014. So if you see me just kind of nudging along, it's because I'm practicing. So here you can see this 10 dot. That is the private IP address that has been added to go out into the internet. Here is the internal network. Alright, so let's take a look at DHCP. We can see our server name, Orchid PC. Same thing with the IP addresses. Let's go to DNS. Our domain name server is Orchid PC. Orchid PC is the name of my computer. So let's see here. The server name, yep. Okay. Let's pop back out of there and see what I need to go through. I explained OPIPA. OPIPA is automatic private IP addressing. So you'll see a 169. It'll start, your IP address will start with a 169. So let's do Windows run command. Alright, so you can see Comcast is taking me out to the cloud, and there's our internal network without a default gateway, because I am the default gateway for these computers I'm about to spin up. So I'd like to show you how I did the roles, but I don't want to waste too much time. If my academic advisor or whoever's watching this video, if you're interested how I set it up, I showed you the YouTube video in the beginning. So what I need to prove is that I have clients that can access this domain controller. They can be issued an IP address within the scope that was shown. Not only that, they are on this domain, they are on the Windows Server domain. Therefore, their traffic will travel through the domain controller and then go to the internet. So why don't we do Windows 7 Let's spin that one up. And while that's firing up, I would like to reiterate or say again that Windows 7 is outdated and there's a kernel exploit. There's a lot of vulnerabilities. It's not just the kernel, but that will be the lab that I'm doing next, and a lot of it is through a shell and a command prompt. It's not all this. So Control Alt Delete. Oops, that's not me. So we'll do an input. So I'm inputting Control Alt Delete into VirtualBox, and this is a computer. It's just a virtual machine. So we'll insert Control Alt Delete. So Blent, that's one of the users that was added to the Active Directory using the PowerShell script. So let's just switch user just so we can see it's a domain. Prove that it's a domain. The domain name Orchid, and then I pulled the name out of the script just to verify that this does work, and I pulled a D Earls. So we'll go D would be his first initial, and then Earls, D Earls, and the password in the script was password1. And look at, it's preparing the desktop, so it's preparing it like he's a new user. So yeah, it works. There we go. So we'll go here. We'll do Windows key R, CMD for command, and then we'll hit it with an IP config. And there we go. So there we go. Orchid.com. There's the first IP address, or the second actually, because 100 would be the first. There it is, 101, 172.16.0.101. You got your net mask 255.255.255.0. That's a Cedar 24 network, CIDR, and just for the sake, because I might be, just for me, Cedar, the acronym stands for Classless Inter-Domain Routing. Okay, so it's a Cedar 24 if you're working in a command prompt, Cedar 24 would be a / and the number 24. So with that said, it looks like this computer is set up to access the internet. What we could do just to test it is Windows run again, and we can ping google.com, B-I-N-G, ping space, ping www.google.com. Alright, enter. So yeah, come on, what's going on now? Could not find the host. Alright, so we're going to do a real live troubleshoot. So let's do this. Let's see here, IP config. Let's just do a / flush DNS. Okay, let's do IP config / all. Okay, Orchid.com, good. 172.16.01, okay, good. Everything looks good here. Open up network and sharing. It says FAL. It's an Orchid theme, so FAL is short for Phalaenopsis. Change adapter settings. Let's look at the properties. Oh, you have to be an administrator. That's fine. I am the administrator, so let's do this. A-SANTJ. Okay. Fine. CROSS. Awesome. IPv6 is shut off. Let's turn it on. So it can do a link local. We'll do a properties. It's set to obtain automatically. That's what we wanted. Okay. So everything looks good down here. Let's do our Windows run. This is on the fly. So once again, let's ping. Maybe I typed it in wrong. www.google.com. Maybe I didn't put .com. Who knows, I'm tired. I've done, yeah, there we go. This is the third time. And the time before was an hour, so I'm going to try to speed this up. Okay, so we got, looks good. Our statistics look good. 4 packets were sent, 4 packets received, 0 lost. So we are accessing the internet. Alright, so that's enough proof. So let's go ahead and log off. I'm going to test one more computer and run the power and show a short clip of the PowerShell script being ran. Because if I were to run Josh's script again, you're just going to see a bunch of orange lettering because it's the script did its job. Alright, so Windows 8 Pro, we're going to test that. Remember that the settings were set. All we have is that internal NIC. So for it to go and reach the internet, the cloud, the World Wide Web, that information needs to go through the domain controller that has been configured by me using the lab on YouTube. A lot of stuff, great stuff is on YouTube. This is what I do when I'm not doing classwork. This is my hobby. This is what I spend my time on. Okay, there's Windows 8. Looks good. Let's just see if we can get on. Yep, there's Orchid. Backslash. So everything looks good. We'll log in. I just want to pull something up really quick. Let's take a look at the server. We'll go in here. Let's see, administrative tools. And this is what I wanted to do. We're going to just pull a random name. And while that's pulling up, it's moving slow. I'm going to look here, make sure I covered everything. I explained scope. And I'll show the script, the PowerShell script at the end. I'm not going to show all the VMs. I think 2 will be enough. Explain NIC. And how, yep, that looks good. I'm not going to show how I added the roles and features and explain the process. That's going to take too long. That was in the lab. It obviously worked. I do what I wanted to do, but the server's getting warm. It's getting tired. This has been a long night. I've recorded for 2 hours. And every single time I got not what I wanted. Anyways, what I was going to do is pull up the PowerShell script. I wanted to pull up the PowerShell script and I wanted to show that I can just pull one of the names and log in. But I've done it so many times, it works. So let's just log into this domain. We'll log in as another user. We can at least do that. And I can log into it. I can use my administrative account. So we'll go A-SANTJ. So the way it was set up was A for administrator, and then the way I set it up was the first 4 letters of my last name and my first initial. Yeah, and we're logging into a domain. Let's log this out, sign out. Let's switch a user. Let's do another user. Maybe I can find another user that wasn't used. That way we can show the fancy startup screen. Wanted to show Winning Cat. So Winning Cat, if you ever had to update a Windows 10 PC, and they try to sell you a bunch of stuff, and they got the cat with his hands up in his air, and he's got like a weightlifting belt, like he won something. I want to do Winning Cat. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna use it as a troll. Okay, so other user, the other user that was in that script was A, first name A, and then LOTT, and in that script was password 1. And there it is. It's logging in. So let's log her out. Let's log in another person. Let's do first name Alita Kim. Let's do this person. Z Varian. Interesting names. PASSWORD1. Boom, that's what I wanted to see. You're not going to see winning cat, but basically it's a new user logging into a freshly installed Windows operating system. For proof of concept, I don't think it's really necessary to show the installation of an operating system and partitioning a hard drive, and formatting it with an NTFS file system. I mean, I could if I was asked to, and if it's going to save me from taking CompTIA plus hardware and software again. But I'm not. Everything looks good. We can do a Windows key R, CMD for our command prompt. We can do IP config, and we see we're on the domain. Now we're on 102. So the scope was 100 to 200. The first example was 101. This PC is 102, and that's it. That should be it. We'll go ahead and just minimize this, and I'm going to show how what the script looked like when I ran it. We'll explain what's going on here. So within Windows Server, you have the ability to run a PowerShell script, and you can be able to see it in here. Here is the command prompt area, but it's blue because it's PowerShell. So the first command was set execution policy unrestricted. So for us to run this command, we had to do that. So because we don't have, let's keep on going. So then I changed directory to where this script was located. So that's why you see C users A Santiago or ASANTJ desktop. That is the name of the file where the script is located. Now we are in that directory, almost like Linux, but commands are they're similar, but they're similar and they're not. LS is similar. So we did a list of all the files that are in the directory, and we see that our script that we want to run is in there. But using PowerShell ISE within Windows Server 2019, it's going to look like this. Well, this is it, and then we're going to open the file to run the script. But you have to be in the directory for the script to work. So that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. So right now we know that we're in the correct directory, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the script. See, in Linux you wouldn't have to do that. You could just run it right there. So yep, that's the script, the create user script. The password 1, that's going to be everybody's password. If you're interested in how all the nuances of this script, watch Josh's video and he's going to explain it. He wrote it. So right now it's 1,000 users. So what's being done is 1,000 users are being created and inputted into Active Directory. So 1,000 users, think of all the people that attend a college. Think of all the new students that attend a college. You have to put them into Active Directory if they want to log into a domain. It just depends on the college, I guess, that you go to. I don't remember logging into a domain last time I was at Valencia. Maybe we did. I think we were using virtual machines, so. But a lot of workplaces still use Active Directory. A lot of places use it. My work uses it. I mean, that's just the thing. I mean, it's Windows operating system, Active Directory. It's kind of like a telephone book, but with better features. So you can host a website. We'll get into that later. You can do group policy. You can do a lot with it. I'm seeing that now. Definitely seeing it after trying to do this video 3 times in a row. But anyways, this is going to go on until 1,000 users go in. That orange, that's why I didn't want to run the script, because all of these users are already in there. So all you're going to see is that orangey color text, and it's not pretty. I wanted you to see, or the viewer to see, that the script is running and it's creating all of these users into the directory, and we've proven that it worked. We've logged the user in. We'll go ahead and punch through here. It just goes on and on and on. So we'll close out of that, and let's take a look at time. We're at 46. We're going to cut it. That's enough to prove that. It's enough to prove a lot. So